Hello again, and welcome to my classroom. This is where I spend a lot of my time subjugating teenagers to as much humiliation as possible, as it's one of my favourite pastimes. But it's also where I carry out most of my lecturing duties and take teaching and training of young apprentices as well as mature older students. Now, it's a bit noisy down the other end, so what I've done is I've actually pulled one of the cylinders out from the workshops and brought it into the classroom so that we can be a little bit more intimate as far as chatting about the Megaflo cylinder. Now, this particular model is an indirect, although we're not actually going to be talking about indirect units. It's the direct units that I'm going to have a little chat about on this video. Now, the direct unit uses exactly the same components as the indirect as far as electrical systems are concerned. Now, electrical systems or immersion heaters in the direct units do tend to be a little bit more problematic, and that's because of the components that they use, and sometimes if you have the thermostat set too high can cause a lot of problems with scale, which in turn will then blow the immersions. Now, depending on the model of unit that you've got, some of the older models, the immersions have changed over the years, but generally speaking there's only basically two that are most common. Now, if you've got one of the old original Megaflo units, your immersion heater will look something like this, and it will just be this bit that you will be able to see outside the cylinder. It's got a big white plastic cap with a hexagonal or octagonal nut on the bottom. So this is the earlier type, and then with the HEs, when they came along, they updated that, and they look something like this. Now, this is obviously an Incaloy, so it's very, very hard wearing, and it will last you years, or hopefully it will last you a few years before it blows or fails. But they do get an incredible amount of use, because this small element is what's going to heat up all the water in the whole tank. Now, water generally deposits scale as soon as it gets to around about 55-60 degrees. And as soon as you go above that temperature, the water will actually deposit larger amounts of scale. So the hotter it gets, the more scale you'll get produced in the cylinder. Now, if you look at this, this is very clever because you can see it's curved. So when it's actually inside the cylinder, right there, you can see there that it's actually going to go right down to the bottom of the tank. So it heats the water up right down to the bottom. Whereas the earlier models, or the straight models, only go into the cylinder at this level. Therefore, the water at the bottom of the tank doesn't get as hot, which is fine. But obviously this is a little bit more efficient because you get more hot water. But in the end, here you have a thermostat, and this simply slides into the mechanism, goes into your cylinder. The thermostat controls the temperature, so it controls the amount of electricity flowing through the immersion. So, if you're stupid enough to set this thermostat at maximum, that means that your cylinder is going to get very, very hot. And if you get it very, very hot, it means you're going to deposit tons and tons of scale. Now, this is the good news. These cylinders are made of extremely good quality, high quality stainless steel. The great thing about stainless steel is that scale cannot adhere or stick to the surface. So it can't actually stick or weld itself onto the side of the tank or the connections or the pipework, which is really good news. But what it will do is, as your immersion heater's in there heating it up, if it's at a high temperature, the scale will come down the cylinder, a bit like snowflakes, or if it's snowing inside the tank, and gradually work its way down, and it will settle down here at the bottom. Now, generally speaking, that's not the end of the world, until, of course, the scale builds up and it starts filling up the bottom of the tank. Now, if this happens, it will slow down the amount of water that's going in and coming out, so your flow rate will start to reduce. But more importantly, if you've got this type of immersion heater, the bottom, where it's dropping down into the bottom of the tank, will immerse, or the immersion heater will get immersed in the scale. If you start immersing the tip of this in scale, this will blow. And it will blow, believe me. It will actually, I've actually seen these split right the way down and opened right up where they've overheated because the tips have been dipped in scale or they're embedded in scale. Now you might think that'd be the end of the world. Well, it's expensive, yes. This particular part is around about 85, 86 pounds. The thermostat, again, not cheap, these are around about 67 pounds. Now, it's unusual for both of them to go, but it can happen if your cylinder's scaled up. Generally speaking, this is the most common part that goes wrong. This has been modified, this is the old one, it's blue. The new ones are white. If you have blue ones, please ensure that they are exchanged and replaced with the white thermostats, not these blue ones. Okay? Now, what you're going to do if your immersion's blown? Well, this is where it gets very clever. Because we can test all of this equipment without emptying the tank or draining down. All you need are a decent set of tools and electrical testing equipment, which is what we're going to have a quick look at now, and then we're going to have a chat about what to do if you have this problem.